The autumn sky bled fire across the horizon, streaks of orange and crimson smearing like brushstrokes over the rows of identical houses. My parents' suburban home sat at the end of the cul-de-sac like a well-kept secret, the white shutters glowing gold in the sinking sun. As I turned into the driveway, gravel crunching under my tires, a strange tightness curled in my stomach. Sunday dinner. Our ritual. My self-imposed penance. A tradition I had kept alive even as invisible fault lines widened beneath our family's polished surface. I killed the engine and sat for a beat, hands gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles whitened. My charcoal pencil skirt clung to my legs like a uniform. My cream silk blouse had been ironed twice this morning, though no one would notice. Through the bay window, a flicker of movement caught my eye. Shadows, laughter, silhouettes raising glasses. My family always looked happiest when I was still outside looking in. Something felt different tonight. I stepped out of my sensible sedan, the crisp air carrying the faint smell of burning leaves from a neighbor's yard. I hesitated at the door, knocked twice, then key. That had been my mother's mantra since childhood. Always announce yourself, Elise. It's polite. It's proper. So I knocked twice before slipping the key into the lock, my pulse drumming against my ribs. The door swung open to the familiar scent of roast chicken, rosemary potatoes, and the faint perfume of lemon polish from the hallway floorboards. Family photographs lined the walls like curated exhibits. My high school graduation, Sloane's college ceremony, our family vacations where my smile was always a shade dimmer than everyone else's. 1,000 curated memories, none of them mine. Elise, is that you? My mother's voice floated from the dining room, melodic but edged with something brittle. It's me, I called back, hanging my coat on the wooden rack that had held every winter of my childhood. When I entered the dining room, my breath hitched. Sloane Everhart stood by the old china cabinet like she was posing for a magazine spread. Her burgundy cocktail dress shimmered in the low light, hugging her figure with a precision that screamed expensive tailoring. Her hair was freshly highlighted, cascading in perfect, practiced waves. At the head of the table, Grant Marlowe, my father, poured champagne into crystal flutes reserved for Christmas, milestone birthdays, or moments meant to be remembered. Elise, my mother, Vivian, rushed over, pulling me into a hug. Chanel No. 5 clung to her skin, the scent of anticipation. Her good pearl earrings glinted at her ears. You're just in time. My father finished pouring the fourth glass, his movements deliberate. Perfect timing indeed, he said, voice like polished wood. We were just about to toast. Toast? My voice came out flatter than I intended. I accepted the champagne flute, cool and heavy in my hand. Across the table, Sloane practically vibrated, clutching her glass with manicured fingers, excitement leaking from her in visible waves. What's the occasion? I asked, though dread was already coiling low in my stomach. Vivian and Grant exchanged one of their wordless glances, the kind that always excluded me. To Sloane's future, my father announced, lifting his glass higher. We clinked glasses. The champagne was dry, expensive, laced with green apple and something sharper underneath. I sipped slowly, eyes locked on my sister's. I found it, Sloane blurted out, unable to contain herself. My dream house, in Oakwood Heights. Oakwood Heights, the luxury development with rooftop gardens and a private concierge, where the starting prices alone made my pulse skip. That's wonderful, I said, forcing warmth into my voice. We put in an offer yesterday, Sloane continued, her grin dazzling. And they accepted this morning. Can you believe it? I'm going to be a homeowner. Grant wrapped an arm around her shoulders, pride practically radiating from him. We couldn't be prouder. Vivian patted Sloane's hand. We're helping with the down payment, from the family trust fund. The words sliced through me like a cold blade. The family trust fund. My fingers tightened around the delicate stem of the champagne flute. The family trust fund, I repeated, my voice suddenly hollow. You mean the account I've been contributing to for the past 10 years? For a flicker of a second, something passed over my father's face. Guilt, or maybe just inconvenience, before his expression hardened into the mask of authority. It's for family milestones, Elise. That's always been the purpose. I felt the room tilt slightly, though my feet stayed rooted to the carpet. 10 years ago, I'd been 22, fresh out of college, clinging to my first job as an administrative assistant at a law firm. I remembered that dinner, this very table, my father spreading papers before me like a priest at an altar. "It's time you started thinking about your future," he'd said. "A security fund for your wedding someday, your first home," my mother had chimed in, soft but insistent. "Add what you can each month. We'll manage it. Contribute too. When the time comes, you'll have a solid foundation." And so I had. Month after month, $500 siphoned from my modest salary, vacations skipped, secondhand furniture bought, living in an apartment with temperamental plumbing and walls thin enough to hear the neighbors argue. 10 years of sacrifice, nearly $60,000. My money, my faith, my mistake. "Let me show you the pictures," Sloane said now, pulling out her phone. Photo after photo of granite countertops, cathedral ceilings, sun-drenched rooms scrolled past. She swiped with a flourish, her voice bubbling with pride. "This is the living area. This is the master bedroom with the walk-in closet." I nodded mechanically, my throat tight. "It's beautiful." "It is," my father said, glancing at me. "Elise has always been the responsible one. She'll understand. This is what family does." Vivian gave my arm a light, dismissive pat. "You don't even have a serious boyfriend yet, dear. Sloane's at a different stage of life." Sloane, who'd spent 3 years finding herself after college while I worked 60-hour weeks. Sloane, who'd been given a new car as a graduation gift while I'd taken the bus. Sloane, whose European educational vacation last summer had been called an investment by our parents. A hot metallic taste flooded my mouth. "Excuse me," I murmured, setting down my barely touched champagne. "Bathroom." I slipped out before anyone could stop me. The bathroom's mirror reflected a stranger, flushed cheeks, eyes wide with something close to panic. My hands trembled as I pulled out my phone, thumb hovering over the banking app. The joint account appeared on the screen, the one my parents had promised to manage. Previous balance, $59,172.43. Current balance, $0. Last transaction, transfer to external account. Yesterday. My vision blurred. The walls closed in, the scent of lavender soap suddenly cloying. 10 years of sacrifice emptied with a single keystroke. Not a phone call, not a text, not even a warning. For Sloane's dream house, I gripped the edge of the sink until my knuckles whitened, trying to anchor myself against the spin of the room. In the distance, through the closed door, I could still hear their laughter. The bright, brittle kind of joy people manufacture to keep from noticing the cracks. Sloane's voice rose above the rest, describing marble backsplashes and rooftop gardens. Vivian's delighted hum, Grant's low rumble of approval. The sound was muffled, but it still reached me, like waves crashing on the other side of a wall. The mirror showed my reflection, but for the first time, I didn't see Elise Marlowe, the dutiful daughter, the family's rock, the responsible one. I saw someone who had been stripped bare, someone who might finally be dangerous. Through the thin bathroom door, their voices seep in like poison. Sloane's bright, excited chatter about accent walls, marble countertops, and delivery dates. Vivian's delighted responses, soft hums of approval like music, carefully rehearsed for her favorite child. My father's deep, steady rumble of pride. Grant Marlowe's voice, heavy with certainty, the voice that never wavered. And me, on the other side of the mirror, the woman staring back at me looks like Elise Marlowe. But not quite. Her blouse is still immaculate, her hair smoothed into submission. But her eyes, my eyes, are fractured glass. The responsible one, the reliable one. The daughter who will always understand. Except I don't understand, not anymore. For the first time in my life, I don't want to. This isn't about money, I realize as I study the stranger in the glass. This is about value, about worth, about respect. A decade of sacrifice reduced to a line item in someone else's success story. I draw one deep breath, then another. My shoulders square. My pulse steadies into something almost calm. The kind of calm that comes before storms. They've made their choice. Now I'll make mine. The bathroom door swings open harder than I intend, slamming against the wall. The sound slices through their laughter, leaving silence in its wake. 3 heads turn in unison, Vivian clutching her napkin, Grant holding his champagne like a scepter, Sloane gleaming in her burgundy dress, mid-toast. That was my money. My voice is steadier than I expect. The words fall into the silence like shards of glass. Vivian's laugh comes too quickly, too brittle. It's a family fund, dear. We've always made decisions as a family. Family decisions? I taste the phrase like it's spoiled. Did anyone consult me before emptying an account I've poured $60,000 into? Sloane rolls her eyes with theatrical flair, swirling her champagne as though she's the star of some petty drama. Don't be so dramatic, Elise. It's not like you were using it. Grant sets his flute down with deliberate precision, the crystal kissing wood. Let's all calm down. Your sister needs this house. It's about the greater good of the family. The greater good. A phrase that sounds noble until it's used as a weapon. The greater good? My hands clench into fists at my sides. Show me the account statements. Now isn't the time, Grant begins, his tone iron and warning. Show me the statements. Each word drops from my lips like a stone in water, rippling through the room. Vivian and Grant exchange a glance, the kind of silent exchange that had always excluded me. After a long pause, my father exhales through his nose, a reluctant sigh. If that's what it takes to end this nonsense, he mutters, pushing back his chair. He disappears down the hallway toward his office, footsteps measured, controlled. While he's gone, Vivian slips into damage control. Elise, I know you're disappointed, but your sister has found her perfect home. Can't you simply be happy for her? Sloane's eyes sparkle as she leans forward, wine-glossed lips curving. You can visit any time. There's even a spare bedroom you could use. The casual generosity of offering me scraps purchased with my own sacrifice makes bile rise in my throat. Grant returns with a leather portfolio, hesitating only for a moment before placing it on the table. The sight of it makes my pulse spike. I reach for it before he can reconsider, the cool leather heavy under my fingertips. Flipping it open, I find rows of neatly organized statements, each deposit bearing my name. 10 years of discipline laid out in cold numbers. I trace the columns with shaking fingers, hunting for proof of their contributions. Page after page, month after month, empty. Only my money, my sacrifices. There's nothing here from either of you, I say, my voice flat but burning. Not $1. Grant shifts in his chair, discomfort cracking his veneer. We provided the investment strategy, the guidance. Guidance? I spit the word like it tastes foul. I flip further, eyes scanning. Then I freeze. What's this withdrawal? $20,000 in August 2022? Sloane suddenly finds her glass endlessly fascinating, her nails tapping against the stem. Vivian's voice slips in smoothly, a balm meant to cover rot. Sloane needed help with graduate school, just a small loan. A cold laugh bubbles up from somewhere I don't recognize. A loan? I turn another page. And this $12,000? These smaller withdrawals scattered through the years? Grant clears his throat, his authority thinning. The down payment for her car, some assistance when she was between jobs. My fingers drum the page. And her European vacation to find herself? No answer, just silence. Vivian's hand stretches toward mine, delicate and rehearsed. I pull away before her touch can burn. Elise, family supports each other. Your sister needed these things. My throat tightens. And what about my needs? The question hangs in the air like smoke, choking them. You've always been so capable, Grant replies, as though it's a compliment. So independent. So independent, I echo, my voice low and sharp. Because I had to be. Because every time I needed something, the answer was no. That's not fair. Vivian whispers, her eyes welling with tears. "After everything we've done for you." "What exactly have you done?" The question isn't shouted. It doesn't need to be. It lands with the weight of something truer than they want to admit. Grant's voice hardens. "We raised you, put a roof over your head, food on the table. The bare minimum parents are supposed to do." "Family supports each other," he repeats, jaw tightening, veins rising in his temple. "Your sister needs this start in life." "And I don't?" The portfolio snaps shut in my hands, the sound echoing like a gavel. "I've supported this family by being the responsible one for 32 years. That account was mine, and you took it." Sloane scoffs, twirling her glass. "It's just money, Elise. You can save more. It's not my fault you chose a boring career." Her casual cruelty cuts deeper than the theft. I feel something inside me splinter. I rise, gathering my purse and the portfolio. Vivian's voice rises in panic. "Where are you going? I made your favorite dessert, lemon squares. I've lost my appetite." Grant stands too, looming, authority radiating like heat. "Elise, we expect you to be reasonable. The decision has been made." "Yes," I say, turning toward the door. "It has, but not by you." "This is ridiculous," Sloane snaps, her annoyance breaking through her glossy composure. "You're ruining a perfectly good celebration over some money." I pause at the doorway, turning back. They are frozen in tableau. Grant stern and immovable, Vivian twisting her napkin into threads, Sloane glittering with entitlement. "This isn't about money," I say softly, the truth wrapping around my words. "It's about trust." The door closes behind me with a soft click, final and sharp. Outside, the night air is cool against my burning skin. Street lamps hum to life, casting pale light across the quiet cul-de-sac. My car waits like an ally in the shadows. The leather portfolio sits heavy on the passenger seat, a decade of betrayal bound and documented. As I drive away, their house recedes in the rearview mirror, its glowing windows shrinking until they look like nothing more than distant embers. For 32 years, Elise Marlowe has been the responsible daughter, the one who returned, who forgave, who understood. Not tonight. Tonight the script has been rewritten. And for the first time, I wonder what happens when the dutiful daughter decides she no longer owes anyone anything. That night, for the first time in years, I don't drive on autopilot toward acceptance. I choose a different road. At my apartment, the portfolio of bank statements sits open across my coffee table, its pages fanned out like broken wings. Columns of dates and amounts stretch before me, each entry a breadcrumb trail of my decade-long sacrifices. Rent checks postponed, vacations canceled, clothes worn until the seams gave way. All of it documented, all of it stolen. My phone vibrates against the table. Again, 7th time in an hour. I don't even glance at the screen. I already know the culprits. Mom's soft guilt, Dad's thunderous disappointment, Sloane's dismissive cruelty. I let it buzz until it dies into silence, the sound like a mosquito I've finally crushed. I open my laptop. Curiosity, or maybe masochism, drives me to Sloane's Instagram page. There she is, standing in front of the Oakwood Heights sales office, a polished smile cutting across her face, house keys dangling like trophies between her manicured fingers. The caption, "Dreams come true when you have a generous family." 27 likes in less than an hour, 3 comments praising her hard work. My fingers hover over the keyboard. I imagine typing, "Congratulations on spending my $60,000. Hope the hardwood floors don't creak like the pipes in my apartment, the one I stayed in for 10 years while saving for a home of my own." But I don't type it. Not yet. The phone buzzes again. This time I look. Mom. "Elise, sweetheart, please call us. Your father is very upset. We need to talk about your behavior last night." My behavior. That's what she calls storming out after they gutted my life savings without a word. A tantrum, as though I were still 16 and sulking over curfew. Before I can toss the phone away, another message appears. "Dad. Your silence is disappointing, though not surprising. The Marlowe-s do not air their grievances like children. Consider the reputation you risk with this tantrum." The family reputation, the sacred idol to which every truth must be sacrificed. And Sloane's message, of course. Sloane. You could at least be happy for me. It's not like you were using that money anyway. The rage that bubbles up is sharp and metallic, like tasting blood. I throw the phone onto the couch and press my palms hard against my eyes until pinpricks of light burst across the darkness. A voicemail chimes. Against my better judgment, I listen. Mom's voice. Elise, it's Mom. I know you're upset, darling, but you're not seeing the bigger picture. Sloane is starting her life with Jordan. They need this home to build their future. You've always been our rock, our responsible one. Please call me back. Your father. Her voice lowers to a whisper. He's talking about removing you from the will if you pursue this. Please be reasonable. I delete the message. Another follows, then another. Each voicemail starts with honeyed concern and ends with the same veiled blade. Family duty, reputation, inheritance. By the time a knock rattles my door the next evening, I'm braced for one of them. Mom with crocodile tears, Dad with sermons about loyalty, Sloane with mocking laughter. But it isn't them. It's Sarah. She holds a bottle of wine in one hand and a thick folder in the other. Her dark hair is pulled into a no-nonsense bun, her expression a mix of concern and determination. You sounded awful on the phone, she says, brushing past me into the apartment. So I brought reinforcements. She knows me too well. Sarah's been my closest friend since college, a woman whose practicality and razor-sharp instincts have saved me from myself more times than I can count. Now a paralegal at Westbrook & Associates, she's one of the few people I trust without question. I take the wine, eyeing the folder warily. What's that? Information. She's already moving through my kitchen, pulling out a corkscrew like she lives here. The sound of the cork popping echoes in the silence. You said they drained a joint account, right? 10 years of your contributions? Without your consent? Yes, I answer. The word is flat, heavy. Almost $60,000, but they keep insisting it was a family account. Sarah pours 2 glasses of wine, deep red against the clear crystal stems, the only fine glassware I own, a graduation gift from Aunt Margaret. She hands me one before sitting opposite me. Elise, that's not just unfair, she says carefully. That might be illegal. I blink at her. Illegal? Joint account doesn't automatically mean communal funds, she explains, sliding the folder toward me, especially if the paper trail shows you were the only contributor. I flip the folder open. Inside are printouts, case studies, financial laws, precedents. Terms leap off the page. Misappropriation, fiduciary breach, financial exploitation. Cold, clinical words that feel almost obscene against the backdrop of roast chicken dinners and family photo albums. I can't sue my parents, Sarah, I whisper. You can't let them steal from you either. The word steal slices through me like a blade. I've avoided it, even in my thoughts. But there it is, naked and undeniable. 2 days later, I find myself in the office of Thomas Wilson, a senior partner at Sarah's firm. His hair is silver, his eyes kind but unyielding as he studies the bank statements I've laid before him. This isn't a trust, he says, removing his glasses. This is your money, plain and simple. The fact that they withdrew it without your consent is deeply troubling. They're my parents, I murmur, as though that explains everything. Exactly, he says gently, which makes the betrayal of trust even more concerning. The words hang heavy in the air. Betrayal. I've been circling it for days, but hearing it aloud cements the truth. I leave his office with the portfolio clutched to my chest, the weight of 10 years pressing harder than ever. That night, I linger in my classroom after dismissal. The walls are lined with third-grade artwork, crayon families, paper butterflies, lopsided solar systems. I adjust a crooked drawing of a rainbow, run my fingers over another labeled integrity in block letters. 5 years teaching at Franklin Elementary. 5 years of pouring myself into these children, watching them grow, while my own life remained suspended. Always the dependable daughter. Always close enough for Mom's sudden surgeries, Dad's demands, Sloane's emergencies. I sit at my desk, staring at the remnants of today's lesson on simple machines. How many opportunities had I passed up to remain tethered to this town? The teaching fellowship in Colorado, the curriculum position in Chicago. Even love. Daniel, who I let go because Dad thought a contractor wasn't ambitious enough for a Marlowe daughter. Each choice, each sacrifice, another brick in the invisible cage they built around me. My eyes drift to Jamie's drawing from last month. The assignment had been to illustrate what integrity means. His picture showed a stick figure standing alone in a storm, holding a flag that read, "Do the right thing." The simplicity of it breaks something inside me. For so long, I've believed integrity meant loyalty to my family, obedience to their rules, sacrifice for their needs. But maybe, just maybe, it means something else. Maybe it means standing alone. Jamie's drawing still stares back at me from the corner of my desk. A stick figure stands tall while others huddle behind in the storm. Beneath it, in careful third-grade handwriting, Miss Marlowe taught me to stand up for myself. The words echo louder than my thoughts when my phone rings, startling me. An unknown number. My thumb hovers over the decline button, but something inside me whispers, "Answer it." "Elise?" The voice is warm, familiar in a way I haven't heard in years. "This is Aunt Meredith," she says. I sit straighter. Aunt Meredith, Dad's sister, the outlier, the one who fled to Arizona decades ago after some mysterious fallout no one in the family ever explained. I hadn't heard her voice since I was a teenager. "Aunt Meredith, how did you—" "Sarah called me," she says, her tone matter-of-fact. "She told me everything." Of course she did. Meredith and Sarah always had that same flinty streak, that unwillingness to bow. No wonder they stayed in touch behind my back. "I heard what Thomas and Eleanor did," Meredith continues, her voice carrying the dry, sun-bleached warmth of the desert. "What they did with your savings." "It's complicated," I murmur, defaulting to the excuse I've used my entire life for my parents' behavior. "No," she interrupts sharply. "It's not complicated at all." The steel in her voice cuts through me. "They did the same thing to me," she says after a pause. "With Grandma's jewelry, the sapphire necklace and the cameo brooch she left me in her will. Your father insisted they needed to stay in the main family line. He wore me down, told me it was for tradition. I let it go. Because I thought that's what family did. Sacrifice. Silence. My breath catches. I never knew. No one had ever told me. Of course you didn't, Meredith says, reading my silence. They've built a fortress of silence around their behavior for generations. Your grandfather did it to your father. Thomas learned it, perfected it, and now it's you they're gutting, piece by piece. I glance up at Jamie's drawing again, the tiny stick figure standing alone, flag raised against the storm. This stops with me, I hear myself say, my voice steady in a way that startles even me. Good girl. I can hear her smile across the miles. Now listen carefully. Here's what you're going to do. She outlines steps. Legal, practical, emotional. Lines of defense, strategies to keep their manipulations from sinking in. She's battle-scarred, I realize, but not defeated. She's handing me the map she never had. By the time we hang up, the sun has dipped below the horizon outside my classroom window. But for the first time since that cursed Sunday dinner, I feel a flicker of light inside me. A spark that might grow into a fire. This stops with me. The next day, I'm seated in the polished, mahogany-paneled office of Thomas Wilson, the senior attorney Sarah recommended. His study smells faintly of leather and dusted law books. Afternoon sunlight slants through Venetian blinds, painting the conference table in golden bars where my bank statements lie in grim rows. 10 years, he says, adjusting his silver-rimmed glasses as his weathered fingers turn the pages. Every month, without fail. I nod. My throat is dry. And not a single contribution from your parents, he adds, his voice steady but laced with indignation. They managed the account, I say weakly, the excuse sounding hollow even to me. Thomas lifts his gaze, his blue eyes sharp as knives. "They managed to empty it, Miss Marlowe. Without your knowledge, without your consent. That's not management. That's misappropriation." The word strikes like a gavel. Misappropriation, a sanitized legal term for theft. "The law is clear," he continues. "You have grounds for civil litigation. If necessary, criminal charges. Fraud." The word fraud lands in the pit of my stomach like a stone. My parents, my sister, my own blood. "I don't want to destroy my family," I say, straightening my shoulders. "I just want what's right." Thomas studies me for a long moment, then nods. Then we begin carefully. Certified letters, one to the bank, disputing the transaction. Another to your parents, outlining the legal standing of your claim. It will signal seriousness without immediate escalation. He slides 2 envelopes across the table. My name waits at the bottom, line after line. My signature flows across the paper, bolder than I feel. "Fair warning," Thomas says as his assistant collects the envelopes. People rarely respond well when called to account. 4 days later, his prediction proves prophetic. I arrive at Aunt Meredith's house for what she calls a casual dinner. But the moment I step into her dining room, the air is thick with ambush. Uncle Frank sits at the head of the table, his usually jovial face hardened into stern disapproval. Cousin William slouches beside him, broad shoulders still radiating the same self-assurance he carried as his college football team's golden boy. "You're breaking your mother's heart," Uncle Frank intones, pointing his fork at me like a weapon. "She hasn't slept since those legal papers arrived." I fold my napkin neatly, buy myself a measured sip of water. "I'm sorry to hear that." "Sloane has always had big dreams," William chimes in, leaning forward, his voice dripping with patronizing charm. You've always been just a teacher." The word "just" lands like a slap. I've spent my life helping children dream bigger than their circumstances. I reply evenly. Last year alone, I paid for 3 of my students' college application fees out of my own pocket. Meredith's eyes flicker, wide with surprise. She didn't know that. Uncle Frank shakes his head. "Your sister needs that money for her future, her house, her wedding. She has plans." "So did I say simply. The table stills. For perhaps the first time in decades, they actually hear me. My phone buzzes in my purse, breaking the silence. I excuse myself to the kitchen, grateful for the reprieve. It's an Instagram notification. Sloane has tagged me in a post. The photo shows her and Jordan standing before a bold red "sold" sign, his arm looped around her waist. On her left hand, a diamond ring catches the sun, glittering like a blade. The caption reads, "She said yes, celebrating our engagement and our new home. Blessed to a new chapter." The comments flood in. Congratulations, praise, envy, all for Sloane, the eternal golden child. My fingers hover. I could ignore it, stay silent, keep peace. But something deep inside, the same steel that saved $60,000 while she flitted through years of indulgence, refuses to be silent any longer. I type, "Congratulations on your engagement. I hope your new home brings you as much joy as my decade of savings brought me." And I hit send. Within seconds, notifications explode across my screen. Dozens of alerts, buzzing nonstop. Gasps and whispers erupt behind me in the dining room as William, no doubt, sees the comment too. I slip my phone into my purse, smooth my blouse, and return to the table. No one says a word, but the air is electric with outrage. Sloane will see it soon. Mom and Dad will hear within the hour. The fortress of silence they built is cracking. 3 days later, the first real victory arrives, not through Instagram, not through whispered guilt, but in the sharp clarity of an email in my inbox. The email notification glowed across my laptop screen like a lighthouse beam in the dark. Subject line, "Notice of account status, pending investigation." I clicked it open, my heart pounding. "Dear Ms. Caldwell, per your submitted dispute, the accounts connected to the transaction in question have been frozen until further notice. Pending investigation. Please expect an update within 14 business days." I exhaled a shaky breath. It was official. My decade of silence and sacrifice had finally been given a voice. The silence didn't last long. My phone erupted, vibrating so violently it nearly skidded off the desk. The caller ID flashed. Grant Marlowe. My father. I let it ring once, twice before I pressed accept. What have you done? His voice thundered through the speaker, the kind of voice that had silenced me since childhood. Exactly what you taught me, I said softly, though I surprised myself with the steel in my tone. Protecting what's mine. You ungrateful. He launched into a tirade about loyalty, about betrayal, about the family name. He spoke of heritage and obligation, as if those words could patch the hole where trust had once lived. His anger swelled with each syllable, drowning out any space for reason. I let him finish, my silence deliberate this time. When the storm finally broke into gasps for air, I asked simply, "Is that all?" The line went dead. The next afternoon, I was rearranging science projects in my classroom. Mason's papier-mâché volcano leaned precariously against Sophia's carefully painted solar system. I adjusted them with care, grateful for the distraction. But then the air shifted. A shadow stretched across the doorway. I turned, and there she was, Vivian Marlowe, my mother, perfectly coiffed, draped in pearls, a soft beige coat that looked foreign against the chaos of colorful alphabet charts and stick figure drawings. "We need to talk," she said, closing the door behind her. I kept aligning the projects, refusing to give her the satisfaction of rushing to meet her gaze. "We're family, Celeste. Can't we handle this privately?" I smoothed a crease in Mason's volcano display before answering. "We could have 10 years ago, or last month, or even at Sunday dinner, but not anymore." Her voice dropped to a whisper, though no one was around. "Do you have any idea what this is doing to your father? To Rachel's wedding plans?" I turned then, finally facing her. "Yes, I know exactly what this is doing. The same thing you've been doing to me for years." For the first time, I saw her falter. The mask slipped. Behind her polished exterior, her eyes darted like a trapped bird's. And for one fleeting second, I wondered if she was finally seeing me not as the dutiful daughter, but as the woman who had grown teeth. A week later, I sat at a walnut conference table that gleamed beneath recessed lighting. Thomas Whitaker sat beside me, his silver hair catching the glow. His calm presence wrapped around me like armor. Across the table sat my parents and Rachel. Grant Marlowe's jaw worked like a machine, tightening and loosening in barely contained rage. Evelyn twisted a tissue into confetti, the pearls on her wrist clicking with nervous rhythm. And Rachel? She didn't even look up from her phone, scrolling through pictures of granite countertops and walk-in closets, the future she thought was hers. "Let's begin," Thomas said, his voice carrying quiet authority. He opened his leather portfolio with deliberate care. Robert slammed his palm onto the table. "This is ridiculous. We're family, not adversaries. Celeste, I raised you better than this." The words escaped me before I could stop them. "Did you?" Evelyn dabbed at dry eyes. "You're tearing this family apart over money, after everything we've done for you." Thomas cleared his throat. "Mrs. Caldwell, with respect, let's focus on the facts." He slid a stack of bank statements across the polished table. "These records show a decade of monthly deposits, $500 every month for 10 years, all from Ms. Caldwell's account." Rachel finally looked up. The blood drained from her face as her eyes scanned the columns of numbers. "And," Thomas continued, "statements showing zero contributions from Robert or Vivian Marlowe during that time." Robert's face flushed crimson. "We managed the account. That's a contribution. Mismanaged would be more accurate," Thomas said evenly. "Under state law, this constitutes financial misappropriation, the transfer of funds without proper authorization." Robert leaned forward, voice booming. "We didn't need authorization. It's a family fund." Thomas tapped another document. "The paperwork indicates otherwise. The account was established in Celeste's name, with you listed only as co-signatories, not as a discretionary trust." Evelyn leaned toward Robert, whispering furiously. His expression shifted from rage to calculation. Rachel shoved her chair back. "You promised me that house. I've already told everyone. I've already picked out furniture. Rachel, Evelyn tried, but her voice cracked. No! Rachel's pitch rose. This is humiliating. What am I supposed to tell Jason? That we can't afford the house because my sister is selfish? The word hit me like a slap. Selfish? I lived in an apartment with broken heating for 3 winters to save that money. The silence afterward was deafening. Robert and Evelyn exchanged a glance, their secret language of 35 years. Then Robert adjusted his tie and leaned forward. Let's be reasonable. We'll split the money 3 ways. Fair for everyone. Thomas opened his mouth, but I stopped him with a hand on his arm. This moment belonged to me. No, I said, steady and final. It was never yours to split. Robert's eyes narrowed. Is this how you repay us? Your mother and I gave you every advantage. I pressed my palms flat on the table. Did you? You gave Rachel a car for graduation. I took the bus for 2 years. You paid for Rachel's master's degree. I worked full-time while studying. You funded her trip to Europe. I haven't had a vacation in 6 years. Evelyn flinched, but I pressed on. And when I trusted you, when I believed you were helping secure my future, you emptied my account without a word. Thomas slid another document forward. We've prepared a settlement agreement, full restoration of Celeste's funds, plus 5% interest compounded annually. This is generous, considering we could pursue damages. Robert stared at the paper like it might burn him. You'd sue your own parents? I looked him dead in the eye. I'd protect what's mine, just like you taught me. The room fell silent, but for the hum of the air conditioning. Rachel's phone buzzed with another notification, ignored this time. Finally, Evelyn whispered something to Robert. His jaw clenched, but he nodded curtly. His hand trembled as he picked up the pen. The black ink scrawled across the page, stark against white paper. Evelyn signed next, her script elegant but soulless. Rachel shoved her chair back, the sound screeching against hardwood. This is so typical. Perfect Elise gets her way again. I've already told everyone about the house. That's not my problem, I said. My voice didn't waver. Family helps family, Evelyn said weakly. That's what we've always believed. I tucked the signed agreement into my folder. This was never about the money. It was about respect. Rachel stormed out, the door slamming behind her. Evelyn followed, casting one last disappointed glance my way. Only Robert lingered, staring at me as if searching for cracks in my resolve. But I held his gaze until he finally turned, leaving me with Thomas in the silent room. The settlement lay in my hands, heavier than any weight I'd ever carried. And yet, for the first time in years, I felt lighter. Grant Marlowe lingered in the doorway of the conference room long after Evelyn and Rachel had stormed out. His posture, once towering and unshakable, sagged like a pillar chipped by too many storms. The authority he had always worn like a crown seemed stripped away, leaving behind only a man who had built his identity on control. I hope you're satisfied, he said at last, his voice low, almost hoarse. I studied his face, the familiar lines that had haunted my own reflection for years. The squared jaw I inherited, the furrowed brow I once feared. And for the first time, I didn't see an immovable figure, but a man caught in the ruins of his own choices. I'm not satisfied, Dad, I said softly but firmly. I'm just finally standing up for myself. Something flickered in his eyes. Anger, hurt, perhaps even recognition. But he turned without another word, his footsteps heavy as he disappeared down the hall. Thomas Whitaker exhaled quietly beside me, gathering the documents with practiced efficiency. He slid them into his briefcase, his movements calm, precise, grounding. The bank will process the transfer by tomorrow afternoon, he said. Would you like me to request a cashier's check instead of a direct deposit? Yes, I answered, my voice steadier than I felt. A check will do. He nodded, snapping the briefcase shut. You've done something most people never dare, Celeste. Don't underestimate that. The next day, I held the check in my hands. The numbers stared back at me. 62 ordinary 85, 17. 10 years of restraint. 10 years of chipped dreams, 10 years of sacrifice, distilled into ink and paper. It should have felt like triumph. Instead, it felt like standing on the edge of something vast and unknown. I drove straight to Westside Elementary, the brick building that had been my refuge for 6 years. In the administrative office, I slid a check for $5,000 across the counter to Principal Alvarez. "For the scholarship fund," I said. He blinked, stunned. "That's incredibly generous, Celeste. May I ask what prompted this? An inheritance?" I smiled faintly. Yes, an inheritance from myself. That afternoon, I met a realtor named Janet on Maple Street. She wore a bright scarf and carried a folder stuffed with listings, but she needed only one set of keys. The cottage. 2 bedrooms, walls painted dull beige, a kitchen crying out for updates. Worn hardwood floors scarred by decades of footsteps. But in the backyard stood an ancient oak tree, its branches arched like protective arms. Sunlight streamed through east-facing windows, filling the empty rooms with warmth. "It's quiet," Janet said apologetically, as though quiet were a flaw. "Some people prefer more activity." I walked slowly through the rooms, my footsteps echoing against the bare walls. In each corner, I saw more than chipped paint and outdated fixtures. I saw a bookshelf filled with novels, a dining table where friends would gather, a sofa where I could finally rest without guilt. For the first time in years, I saw a future of my own design. That evening, I called Aunt Meredith. Her television hummed faintly in the background, the familiar tune of her favorite game show. "I found my home," I told her, unable to keep the smile from my voice. "Your home or a house?" she asked, ever precise with language. "Both," I said, and for once both felt possible. Spring arrived quietly. One morning, I knelt in freshly tilled soil, planting purple coneflowers along the stone path. My hands were dirty, my knees damp, but my chest felt light. Beside me, Aunt Meredith pressed soil around a seedling, her silver hair blowing in the breeze. "Your grandmother would approve," she said, patting the earth firmly. "She always said gardens are where we plant our hopes." I smiled, remembering the patient woman who once coaxed me into planting marigolds as a child. I hadn't understood her then, but I did now. Behind us stood the cottage, my cottage. Once neglected, now reborn with pale yellow siding and window boxes bursting with geraniums. Inside, the mantel above the small fireplace bore photographs. My 5th graders performing their science play, Sarah and me on a hike in the Blue Ridge Mountains, Aunt Meredith and me at the closing, holding my keys. No recent family portraits hung there. The absence ached, yes, but no longer defined me. "Hand me that watering can, would you?" Aunt Meredith asked. I passed it to her, but movement at the garden gate caught my eye. My breath stalled. Vivian Marlowe stood there. Her posture was hesitant, almost fragile, her purse clutched tightly in both hands. Without Robert beside her, she looked smaller, diminished. "Elise," she said, using my childhood nickname, the one I hadn't heard since before the confrontation. "Your flowers are beautiful." Meredith glanced between us, reading the air with the precision only sisters-in-law could manage. "I'll check on the tarts in the oven," she said, squeezing my shoulder as she passed me. A silent reassurance. "Thank you," I replied, rising slowly, brushing soil from my jeans. "Would you like to come in?" Evelyn hesitated at the threshold, her eyes darting as if she needed permission she wasn't sure she deserved. "I didn't bring anything. I should have brought something. It's all right." She stepped into the garden, 3 careful steps, then stopped. "I've been thinking," she said quietly, "about what happened, about what we did." Her voice faltered, softer than I'd ever heard it. I told myself we were being practical, that we were protecting the family. I didn't see what we were doing to you. The words hung heavy between us. Inadequate, yes, but monumental too. A year ago, I would have demanded more. An admission of every injustice, every sacrifice brushed aside. Now, I saw how much courage it took for her to say even this. "I'm glad you see it now," I said simply. Her eyes shimmered, though no tears fell. Your father still doesn't understand. He says you abandoned the family." "I didn't abandon anyone," I replied, meeting her gaze. "I just stopped abandoning myself." A robin splashed in the bird bath, wings scattering droplets into the air. We both watched as it took flight again. "Would you like some tea?" I asked. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was an opening, a crack in the wall between us. That evening, my dining table held a gathering unlike any Caldwell family dinner I had ever known. Aunt Meredith passed roasted vegetables to Sarah, who recounted a courtroom mishap that made everyone laugh. Thomas Whitaker, silver hair gleaming, sipped wine and told a story from his early career. My colleague Jack, invited on a whim, raised his glass mid-laughter. "To building our own definitions of family," he said. We clinked glasses, the sound soft but full, and in that moment, I realized I had finally built a table where I belonged. Later, I sat on the porch swing, journal in my lap. The evening breeze carried the scent of lilacs. Fireflies blinked like living lanterns above my garden. I wrote the truth it had taken 32 years to discover. The most valuable thing I've gained isn't this house. It's the knowledge that I matter too. I closed the journal, leaned back, and watched the fireflies dance against the fading light. And for the first time in my life, I was at peace, truly, wholly, undeniably at peace.